There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than words. When the quiet withdrawal of someone you once trusted echoes like a storm across your soul. And not just any man, but a man you trusted. A man you confided in. A man who once stood beside you when the world turned its back. A man who prayed with you, cried with you, maybe even smiled with you in your darkest valley. But now, he's preparing to sing a happiness that feels foreign. A happiness that doesn't include you. And that shift, that strange transformation, it's shaking you to your core. You can feel it, can't you? Like a shadow that walks just behind you, but disappears when you turn around. Something about this feels unnatural. Cold. Unsettling. Because this is not just about someone walking away. It's about someone you counted on walking away, singing a song of peace as if you never mattered. As if your struggles were never real. As if the pain you once shared wasn't sacred. And yet, through this strange betrayal, through this invisible wound, something in your spirit begins to stir. Because God saw it before you did. He saw the rehearsals behind the smile. The planning behind the laughter. The secret joy that grew in him, not because of truth, but because of illusion. A joy that wasn't built on unity, but on escape. It's hard to admit that sometimes the ones who hurt us most, once made us feel the safest. But listen closely, you are not alone in this shift. God is not unaware. Heaven is not silent. When trust is broken, it's not just your heart that shatters, it's the image you held of that person, too. And God knows that pain. He sees the fracture between expectation and reality. Between what was promised and what was performed. The man you trusted may be preparing to sing his happiness, but that does not mean your joy is over. In fact, it's just beginning. Because when God allows someone to exit your life, especially someone you trusted, it's not a punishment. It's a redirection. It's an unveiling. It's God pulling you out of a story you didn't know was scripted without your voice. And right now, He's inviting you to stop watching that man and start watching him. Because you were never meant to be the background in someone else's victory. You were born to walk in a story where you are the light. You are the redemption. You are the breakthrough. Even if that man tries to erase the memories, bury the loyalty, and wash away the moments, heaven keeps the record. Heaven never forgets the one who loved with purity. And neither does God. You are not forgotten. You are not foolish. You are not weak for trusting. You were human. You were open. You were kind. And now, you are becoming stronger than you've ever been before. God is preparing you for a happiness that isn't staged. A joy that doesn't need an audience. A breakthrough that doesn't rely on someone else staying faithful. You are being positioned for something higher, and sometimes, elevation requires separation. So yes, let that man sing. Let him chase whatever song he believes will complete him. But don't let his song become your silence. Don't mute your voice because someone else walked away. Don't dim your spirit because someone else needed to escape. You are still chosen. You are still covered. And the next chapter of your life, the one God is writing, does not include regret. It includes resurrection. You're not watching someone rise without you. You're witnessing someone exit what God is about to bless. This is your proving ground. This is the part of the story where the oil flows only from the crushed place. This is the moment you stop waiting for a song of happiness to include you, and start living a life that doesn't need their lyrics at all. So breathe. Stand tall. Reclaim your strength. You are not behind. You are being aligned. And no matter what voices fade from your life, one voice remains steady, the voice of God saying, I will never leave you nor forsake you. If this message is speaking to your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Someone else needs this word today. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't losing the person, it's losing the version of yourself you were when they were in your life. You see, when you trusted that man, you gave him more than your attention. You gave him your heart. Your hopes. Your belief that he would protect what you poured into him. And now that he's choosing another song, a new rhythm, a joy that excludes you, you feel like a page was torn from the middle of your story, without warning. You keep wondering, was I not enough? Did he ever value what I gave? Was his smile ever real? But deeper than those questions is a quiet ache, the ache of being replaced by a version of life that doesn't include you. He's smiling now. Laughing. Maybe even thriving in a way that makes you question everything. And in that moment, it feels like betrayal has won and loyalty was a mistake. But hear this, God is not mocked. The seeds you sowed in honesty, in love, in sacrifice, they will not return empty. Even if the man you trusted rewrites the narrative, removes you from his joy, or acts like your presence was a shadow, heaven knows the truth. And heaven rewards truth. Sometimes, the people we trust begin to treat us like a footnote, a phase they passed through. A detour on the way to their real happiness. They forget the nights you prayed for them. The days you cheered for them when no one else did. The times you swallowed your pain just to see them smile. But God never forgets. And while it may feel like they're singing and you're just surviving, there's something happening beneath the surface. There is a preparation in the spirit. Because God never lets someone walk away without birthing something greater inside you. The loss is not the end. It's the doorway. It may look like he's moving forward, but what's happening inside you is far more powerful. God is rearranging the pieces of your heart, not to leave you broken, but to shape you into something indestructible. He's not just healing you, he's upgrading you. He's taking what that man couldn't value, and he's pouring purpose into it. That's why it hurts so deeply, because what you gave was real. And when real love is discarded, the wound goes straight to the soul. But don't confuse pain with punishment. This pain is a holy signal. It means you're shedding dead weight. It means heaven is stepping in. There's a quote often missed in moments like this: God removes to replace. He subtracts to multiply. He breaks to rebuild. You're not being left behind, you're being positioned for something sacred. And yes, while he sings his happiness, don't ignore this: not all songs are from the heart. Some songs are loud to cover guilt. Some smiles are practiced. Some happiness is performative. Only God sees behind the curtain. And what He's doing in you right now, in the quiet, in the hidden, will outlast any show someone else puts on. You are becoming. You are rising. You are healing. Let the world misread the moment. Let others cheer for the wrong story. But you hold the truth. And heaven stands witness. Archangel Michael is fighting for you. Fighting not just for justice, but for restoration. For peace. For clarity. For the kind of joy that doesn't need validation from someone else's acceptance. You are being carried. Even when you feel forgotten. You are being loved. Even when someone you loved turns away. And you are being restored. Not by the one who left, but by the one who never will. So take a breath. Don't rush to prove anything. Don't compete with the song they're singing. Let them perform. Let them dance. Let them post and pose and pretend. You're not in that scene anymore. You've been elevated to a higher script. And in God's story, your story, there's no need for replacement joy. Because the joy He's bringing you will be real. Full. Eternal. The kind of joy that doesn't break when people do. The kind of happiness that doesn't depend on someone else staying loyal. That's what's coming. That's what you're being shaped for. If this is touching your spirit right now, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Someone out there needs this reminder too. There's a strange ache in watching someone you once prayed for pretend you never existed. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, it's subtle. A slow pulling away. A delayed reply. A laughter that no longer reaches you. And then, silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that screams louder than any argument ever could. You want to scream back. You want to say, I was there when no one else was. I stood beside you when you had nothing. I loved you when you were broken. Why now? Why this? But you don't scream. Because deep down, a voice within you is louder. Not your voice, God's. He whispers, I see what they're hiding behind their happiness. I see the song they're singing. But I also see your tears. And I count them all. That changes everything. Because now, this is not just about a man who walked away. It's about a God who stayed. When betrayal strikes from a trusted one, it often doesn't feel like war, it feels like abandonment. It feels like the ground beneath you has collapsed, and you're trying to build again with trembling hands. But let me tell you something powerful. The people who walk away from your heart can never walk away from God's justice. They may act like you're just a chapter they've outgrown, but God will show that you were the lesson they needed and missed. He is the God who watches the unseen. He is the one who steps in, not to punish, but to realign. To bring closure without chaos. To restore your identity, not through revenge, but through resurrection. You feel the pain because your love was real. But here's the truth, real love doesn't return void. It returns refined. It returns elevated. It returns transformed into wisdom, discernment, and power. You won't be this fragile forever. The pain you're feeling is not permanent, it's process. Heaven is using it. God is shaping something inside you that no betrayal can undo. And the very man who thought he could dance into joy while stepping over your heart, he'll one day remember the peace you brought, the light you carried, the prayers you whispered. Because heaven never lets purity be forgotten. There's a table being prepared for you, in the presence of the very shadows that tried to convince you you were invisible. You're not forgotten. You're not erased. You are in the hands of the one who remembers every detail. And when God remembers, He also redeems. Your current silence will one day become your greatest testimony. Because the healing God is doing in secret will be shouted from rooftops, not through your mouth, but through your life. You won't have to prove anything. Your breakthrough will speak louder than betrayal ever could. So tonight, if you're lying awake, wondering how someone you trusted could smile without you, remember this: that man may be preparing to sing his happiness. But God is preparing to give you a joy that doesn't need a performance. A joy that is rooted. A joy that restores. A joy that sings even when no one is watching. And Archangel Michael is not just protecting you, he is standing guard over your purpose. He is shielding your future from the stains of this moment. He is fighting back every lie whispered against your worth. So sleep in peace. Walk in strength. Let go without guilt. Because your story is not over, it's just about to get louder than any song that man could ever sing. If this message is healing something inside you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Someone else is searching for the same light you've just found. What do you do when someone you trusted rewrites the story, and erases your name from it? What do you do when they sing their joy so loudly, the world believes their side, but your silence holds the truth? You carry it quietly, don't you? You carry the ache. You carry the confusion. You carry the image of that man, not as he is now, but as he was when you believed in him. But here's the sacred part the world doesn't see: God is watching how you carry it. He sees how you haven't cursed them. He sees how you've wept instead of lashed out. He sees how you kept loving even when the love wasn't returned. And that matters more than anything. Because while the man you trusted is preparing his happiness, heaven is preparing your crown. God rewards quiet faithfulness. He blesses the broken-hearted who didn't break others in return. That's you. The fact that you're still standing, still breathing, still believing, even after being pushed aside, is a miracle in itself. You were supposed to fold under the weight. But you didn't. You're still here. Not because of them, but because of Him. Because God was holding your soul when it felt like no one else noticed. He caught the tears behind your smile. He heard the prayers you whispered through clenched teeth and a heavy chest. You thought you were alone in that heartbreak, but the Holy Spirit sat beside you the entire time. And Archangel Michael stood at the doorway, making sure nothing darker than disappointment entered your life. You are not where you used to be. You're not who you used to be. And that's not because of what they did, it's because of what God is doing. He's not just healing you. He's revealing things to you. He's teaching you how to see betrayal as a bridge, not a blockage. Because what you didn't know was this: sometimes, the man you trusted was never meant to finish the journey with you. He was only meant to expose the parts of your heart God wanted to protect. Let that sink in. The betrayal wasn't the end. It was a mercy. Because what if God allowed you to keep trusting the wrong person, while He was preparing the right destiny? No. He had to show you what they were hiding. He had to remove what looked good but wasn't good for your purpose. He had to cut ties that felt holy but weren't heaven-sent. Because your next chapter is too sacred to be shared with someone who doesn't carry the oil for your calling. And that's why the shift happened. That's why it hurt. That's why it still echoes when you try to move forward. But God isn't done. He's just begun. He's writing something so unexpected, so divine, that you'll look back one day and say, "Thank you for removing who I thought I needed." Yes, it stings now. Yes, the loneliness is real. But what's coming is not a replacement, it's a revelation. Your restoration won't look like what you lost. It'll be deeper, stronger, unshakable. So don't envy their song. Don't measure your worth by their highlight reel. Don't shrink just because they've chosen a stage over substance. Your stage is being built in heavenly silence. And when God reveals it, it won't be a performance. It'll be purpose. If your heart feels seen in this message, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Someone else needs the strength you're walking into. There's a sacred moment after heartbreak, a stillness that feels like emptiness, but it's actually the beginning of rebirth. That's where you are now. The man you trusted is singing, maybe even dancing. The world might be clapping for him. But your soul is sitting in the quiet, asking, "Why does it feel like I'm the only one who's hurting?" And here's the deeper truth: sometimes, the person who breaks your heart gets to move on without explanation. And you're left picking up pieces of yourself, in silence. But silence is never empty when God is in it. This is not abandonment, this is alignment. You're not being punished. You're being planted. And in the soil of your pain, God is cultivating a harvest the world hasn't seen yet. You see, while He's singing His joy to crowds, you're being rewired in the secret place. He's entertaining. But you're evolving. He's moving forward in appearance. But you're going deeper in anointing. Because when someone walks away from a soul like yours, they're not just losing a person. They're losing a covering. They're losing favor. They're losing access to prayers that once shielded them from storms. Yes, they may seem unbothered now. But there will come a day, not out of revenge, but of revelation, when they realize they were protected by a presence they didn't honor. And you? You will not have to explain a single thing. Because God will speak through your rise. The pain you're in now is prophetic. It's a signal that you were chosen to endure what others escaped, because your calling is higher. The betrayal didn't break you, it birthed a new version of you. One that sees clearly. One that doesn't confuse presence with purpose. One that understands that not everyone who walks with you was meant to finish the race beside you. And yes, even trusted men can carry poisoned intentions. Even those you gave your best to can turn and sing a victory that wasn't built in honesty. But God is still on the throne. Still watching. Still moving. And He has not overlooked your tears. In fact, the very tears you tried to hide from the world, He's using them to water a future you can't yet imagine. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. Psalm 126 verse 5, You've sown more tears than anyone knows. And your joy? It's coming. But not the kind that fades. Not the kind that needs applause. The kind that stands on truth, grace, and restoration. So let the man you trusted sing. Let him rejoice in the spotlight of his own design. Because the light God is preparing for you won't come from a stage, it will come from the fire you survived. Archangel Michael is still with you. Fighting for your next door. Closing every counterfeit one. Shielding your path from distractions masked as destiny. And when you walk through what's next, it won't be with bitterness, but with boldness. Not with sorrow, but with strength. Not with revenge, but with radiant peace. You are not the ending they expected. You are the beginning God has been waiting to unleash. If this word is bringing clarity to your spirit, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It may be the breakthrough someone else is praying for right now. You never expected the betrayal to come from someone you prayed for. Someone you covered in love. Someone you celebrated when they were invisible to the world. Someone whose name you lifted to heaven when they couldn't lift their own head. And now? They're singing. They're smiling in rooms that once rejected them, the very rooms you believed they deserved to enter. They're singing, but the melody feels sour to your soul. Because deep down, you know the price they paid for that song wasn't truth. It was disloyalty. They left you to stand in their spotlight. And still, you said nothing. Still, you didn't fight back. You didn't drag their name. You didn't match their silence with vengeance. You sat with your pain. You grieved in the presence of God. You let your tears become prayers, not poison. And because of that, heaven is responding. Because you chose peace over pettiness. Because you chose silence over shouting. Because you chose faith over fury. God is opening a dimension for you that betrayal cannot reach. This part of your life isn't about proving them wrong. It's about discovering who you are without needing their approval. You're stepping into identity. Not the identity they assigned you, fragile, dependent, replaceable, but the identity God planted in you before you ever met them. Because here's the truth the enemy hoped you'd never uncover: their exit wasn't your end, it was your elevation. God didn't just allow them to leave, He orchestrated the timing. He saw that what they carried couldn't walk with what He was about to release in you. The song they're singing? It's not built to last. It's noise for now, but your silence is building legacy. Because while they entertain, you're evolving. While they impress, you're being imprinted with glory. And when God reveals what's been growing inside you, the world will understand why it had to hurt this way. Why you were stripped. Why you were misunderstood. Why you had to sit in seasons of sorrow while others sang. Because the oil that's coming on your life isn't casual. It's costly. It's from the crushing. It's from the heartbreak. It's from the nights you laid on the floor whispering, God, why would you let this happen? And God answers, not always in words, but in movement. He starts redirecting doors. He starts aligning people. He starts separating light from counterfeit. And most importantly, He starts healing the parts of you that you never knew were bleeding. This is redemption in motion. Archangel Michael has gone before you, clearing the path, silencing the whispers, preparing a platform that doesn't require performance. You will not beg for inclusion. You will not force yourself into a happiness that was built on falsehood. You will not chase someone who made peace with leaving you behind. Because you are already seen. Already loved. Already chosen. And the joy that's coming? It won't be based on who stayed or who sang. It'll be rooted in who you became when everyone else thought you were done. So stand tall. Let them sing. Let them post. Let them smile. Let them dance in the echo of a song that wasn't built with grace. You, child of God, are preparing something deeper. Something the world can't ignore. If this message is strengthening your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your story may just become someone else's rescue. There's something divine about walking away from what tried to break you. Not bitter, but better. You could have become cold. You could have matched energy. You could have put on your own show and drowned your pain in a performance of pride. But you didn't. You chose to heal instead of harden. And heaven took notice. Because God doesn't measure your strength by how loudly you fight back, He measures it by how deeply you trust Him in silence. That's what this season has revealed. Not just who that man really was, but who you really are. You thought you were weak for feeling broken. But the truth is, it takes supernatural strength to carry grief and grace at the same time. To watch someone you trusted celebrate without you, and still whisper, God, bless him anyway. That kind of forgiveness doesn't come from your flesh, it comes from your calling. Because somewhere in the pain, you discovered this: not everyone who walks with you is assigned to your destiny. Some are assigned to test your discernment. Some are sent to trigger your growth. Some are simply a mirror, showing you the love you give when you think no one's watching. And that man? He wasn't your destination. He was a door. A necessary moment that opened your eyes to what you deserve. Now you're seeing clearly. Not through the lens of loyalty, but of revelation. You see now how much of yourself you gave away. How deeply you carried his burdens. How long you waited for him to understand your worth. But the waiting is over. Because what you were hoping to receive from him, God is about to release from himself. Unconditional love. Unshakable peace. Restoration that doesn't require validation. You no longer need that man's song to feel whole. You no longer need his approval to feel chosen. Because you've stepped into the greatest realization of all: God never left. While people changed, while loyalties shifted, while the crowd forgot, God remained. He was there when your voice cracked mid-prayer. He was there when your hands trembled over the memories. He was there when you questioned if you were even lovable anymore. And now, He's not just present, He's active. You may not see the full picture yet, but in the unseen, things are shifting. Doors are being prepared that no betrayal can shut. New alignments are forming, real ones, divine ones. And you are being restored in layers. Layer by layer, the pain is peeling back to reveal power. Because the anointing you carry now didn't come from ease, it came from endurance. And the joy you're about to walk into won't need an audience. It will become the evidence. So if that man sings, let him. Let him perform the version of happiness he's chosen. But know this, you are no longer waiting for an apology. You are no longer hoping to be remembered. You are no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You've outgrown the place where pain used to live. You're being led by the hand of the Holy One now, and Archangel Michael is clearing your way. Silencing every whisper. Canceling every counterfeit. And guarding every promise spoken over your life. What's coming next is joy that sings louder than betrayal ever did. If this part has spoken to your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It might be the lifeline someone else is waiting for. There's a moment, a divine moment, when the silence becomes a sanctuary. When you stop waiting for them to come back. When you stop refreshing your memory for signs you missed. When you stop trying to understand the song they're singing now that you're no longer in the audience. And instead, you look up. You stop looking backward. You stop listening for footsteps that were never meant to return. And you begin to hear something else. God's whisper. A soft, holy sound, not loud like the one who walked away, but deeper. Richer. Filled with truth, not performance. And in that whisper, He says, I was always here. You thought you lost something eternal when that man left. But now you're learning, you only lost what was temporary. You see, what God gives, no man can take. And what leaves you without peace was never part of your promise. Yes, He was part of your story, but not the whole book. He was a chapter. One that ended with unanswered questions, but also undeniable revelations. Because now you see, the way He exited revealed more than the way He entered. He came in smiling, but left silent. He came in needing you, but left pretending you were never there. He came in broken, and you loved Him whole. Only to watch Him sing His joy without you. But don't be confused. His song isn't a testimony, it's a temporary tune. And while the world listens and claps, heaven knows the true story. Heaven knows who wept in the shadows. Heaven knows who interceded when he couldn't pray. Heaven knows who stood in the gap, even while being pushed to the edge. You. You were the anchor when he was drifting. The light when he couldn't see. The voice that reminded him of his own worth. And when he found his footing, he walked away. But let this be clear. Your value was not in being needed, your value is in being chosen by God. You were never a supporting role in someone else's performance. You are the main character in a divine script. And that script is just beginning. Because God is about to release joy over you that doesn't require repair, it arrives whole. You won't have to beg to be included. You won't have to shrink to be accepted. You won't have to question whether you're worthy. This time, God is doing it differently. This time, the doors will open without compromise. The blessings will flow without explanation. And the people who surround you will speak your name with reverence, not regret. Because you passed the test. You let go without destroying. You forgave without understanding. You healed without revenge. And for that, God is honoring you. He's setting a table not just in the presence of your enemies, but in the presence of your witnesses, those who thought you wouldn't survive. Those who thought the song they sang without you would be your silence forever. But Archangel Michael didn't let that happen. He stood over your soul. He fought for your future. He guarded your peace when your heart was under attack. Now, your time is coming. The joy you're about to walk into is not loud, but it's lasting. Not flashy, but it's faithful. Not borrowed, but built by God Himself. So let the man you trusted sing his happiness. Let him write his melody without your name. Because the chorus heaven is writing over your life? It won't need a mic, the world will feel it when you walk into the room. If this message stirred something inside you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your journey could be the light someone else needs tonight. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't crash like thunder or roar like a lion. It settles quietly in the corners of your heart, like dust you thought you cleaned long ago. And one day, out of nowhere, it speaks, you were good to someone who forgot you too quickly. And that's the ache you've been carrying. Not just the memory of what happened, but the silence that followed it. You gave truth to someone who wore masks. You handed your heart to someone who only wanted applause. You offered prayers, while they rehearsed their next performance. And when they were done, when they had sung their song, told their story, and painted you out of the picture, they walked away as if your love was forgettable. But listen carefully, God never forgets the tears you cried in secret. He never ignores the ache that people walk away from. He doesn't need evidence or witnesses to prove what you survived. He was there. He was there when you stayed silent to protect someone's name. He was there when you swallowed pain so they could smile. He was there when you watched them find their happiness, while your heart was breaking into 1,000 sacred pieces. But now, God is turning the page. Because He never lets one-sided loyalty go unnoticed. He never lets betrayal be the final word. That man, the one you trusted, he might be dancing now. He might be clapping and singing and smiling in every photo. But heaven knows the real song. He didn't find happiness, he's performing relief. He's not healed, he's distracted. He didn't win, he escaped responsibility. And eventually, the music fades. The audience leaves. The stage goes dark. And all that's left is the truth. But you won't need to perform your joy. Because what God is building in you isn't staged, it's sanctified. You're not moving forward because you're over it. You're moving forward because God is lifting you out of what you were never meant to carry forever. You are rising without bitterness. Elevating without needing closure. Growing without needing applause. Because your healing is not a show. It's a sacred process. And the reward for your endurance? It's coming. You won't need to prove your worth to the next person. You won't have to overextend to be seen. You won't be punished for your softness. The people God is sending now will know how to handle your heart with honor. They won't treat you like a footnote, they'll treat you like a foundation. And Archangel Michael has already made war in the unseen to guard your breakthrough. He's gone before you. Cleared the path. Removed the traps. So that this time, when you love again, you won't lose yourself. You'll be met with grace, not games. With depth, not deception. With presence, not performance. And the echo of that man's happiness? It'll fade. It won't shake you. It won't confuse you. Because by then, you'll have something he never found, peace that doesn't need validation. The kind of peace that comes when you know your heart was right. When you realize you gave love honestly, even if it was mishandled. When you learn that the real song being sung over your life is from heaven. And heaven's songs don't end in betrayal, they end in resurrection. If this message spoke to your journey, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. There's someone else healing who needs to know they're not alone. There comes a moment in every heart's journey when the pain that once paralyzed you starts to teach you. Not the kind of teaching that comes from books or speeches, but the sacred kind, the kind that whispers through your wounds. You don't just survive betrayal. You become something sacred because of it. You learn how to recognize fake light, how to see behind smiles that hide shadows. You learn how not to chase people who only clap for you when you're useful. You learn how to protect your peace like it's holy ground. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all? You learn how to walk away without bitterness, but with clarity. The man you trusted, the one who smiled while lying, the one who pretended to love while planning exits. He's not singing a victory song. No, he's singing over noise, to silence the guilt. Because somewhere deep down, he knows, he didn't just walk away from you, he walked away from truth. He turned from someone who would have stayed when no one else did. He gave up the kind of heart you don't find twice. But that's not your burden to carry anymore. You don't need to be the lesson someone else learns too late. You don't need to be the memory that haunts him during his fake smiles. You were never meant to be the background music to someone else's drama. You are the voice that God refuses to let go unheard. Heaven took record of everything you kept quiet about. The lies you didn't expose. The loyalty you gave without conditions. The nights you didn't sleep because you were praying for peace in a house that never felt like home. God saw it all. He saw when you begged him to make it work. Not because you were weak, but because you were faithful. He saw how much of yourself you poured into someone who only drank when it was convenient. And he said, enough. So heaven moved, not because you gave up, but because God couldn't watch you bleed for someone who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. Archangel Michael has stepped into your atmosphere, not to fight for revenge, but for restoration. Because there are victories that don't look like winning. They look like peace. They look like release. They look like finally breathing without anxiety. The man who left is preparing to sing, because he wants to seem healed. But you won't need to pretend. Because God is writing a song over your life, not of pain, but of purpose. Every betrayal birthed a new level of vision. Every disappointment pushed you deeper into divine alignment. You're not here by accident. You're still standing because grace refused to let you collapse. And now, your joy won't need a stage. It won't need a performance. It will flow from a place of healing no one can take credit for but God. So don't look back wondering what you could have said differently. Don't waste another minute grieving a performance that was never meant to last. You are not part of the show anymore. You are part of the anointing. And in this next season, the applause you hear won't come from people, it'll come from heaven. Because you stayed pure in a world that applauds pretending. You stayed honest when lying would have been easier. You stayed soft when life begged you to harden. And God calls that strength, not weakness. So hold your head high. Not because the pain is over, but because the process is holy. And the one who left? He'll keep singing, until the silence speaks louder than his song. But you? You'll keep rising. Because your joy is not borrowed. It's God-ordained. If this word reached your heart, take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe. There's someone out there who needs to know that healing is still possible. Some people leave, but their absence echoes louder than their presence ever did. Not because they were everything, but because you gave them everything. And when they walked away, it wasn't just their footsteps that haunted you, it was the sound of promises breaking and dreams you had to bury before they bloomed. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a future you were building in your heart. You saw birthdays, anniversaries, late-night prayers together. You imagined growing, healing, walking in purpose, side by side. But what do you do when the person you trusted the most turns into a stranger with familiar eyes? You grieve. You cry. You question everything you ever said, did, gave, or hoped for. But eventually, you get up. And not because the pain disappeared, but because you finally understood that you were not the problem. You didn't fail love. Love failed you through someone who didn't understand its value. You kept it real in a world that rewards performance. You gave your heart in a place that only knew how to take. And God, in His mercy, decided to close the curtain. Yes, the man you trusted might be out there smiling, sharing his version of the story, singing songs of joy while burying the truth under rehearsed happiness. But heaven is not blind. Archangel Michael didn't just guard you, he witnessed the moments no one else saw. When you sat on your bed, trying to piece together the broken shards of your trust. When you reread old messages, trying to spot the exact moment when love turned into manipulation. When you convinced yourself to pray for someone who used your prayers as protection from their own karma. That's what heaven is healing in you now. Not just the heartbreak, but the habit of blaming yourself for being genuine. You are not too much. You were not naive. You were divinely pure in a space that couldn't handle the light. And now that you've walked through the shadows, you understand something rare. Real healing is not about forgetting what they did. It's about remembering who you became in the aftermath. You didn't stay broken. You didn't curse their name. You didn't burn your future to keep their past warm. You let go. You grew. You trusted God, when trusting people had nearly destroyed you. And that is power. That is faith in its rawest form. That is the kind of obedience that attracts divine reward. So let the man you trusted sing. Let him create illusions and gather audiences. Because soon, the show will end. The music will stop. And the truth will stand alone, stronger than any performance could ever pretend to be. But you? You'll still be rising. With joy not born from revenge, but from redemption. With peace not bought through silence, but through surrender. And with a future not built on fragile humans, but on the unshakable promises of God. If this message reached a deep place in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Someone else needs to hear that they are not the only one healing through hidden pain. There's something divine about silence. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of wisdom. The kind of silence that watches as lies unravel themselves. The kind that doesn't chase, doesn't defend, doesn't beg to be understood. Because it knows, God reveals what man tries to conceal. The man you trusted? He thought your silence was weakness. He mistook your forgiveness for forgetfulness. He assumed that your heart still revolved around his presence. But what he didn't see, was what God was doing in your silence. Behind the quietness, God was building a strength in you that no betrayal could shake. He was turning your tears into tools. Your heartbreak into healing oil. Your story into strategy for someone else's deliverance. The man who betrayed you may be dancing now. Singing songs of joy, painting a picture of peace. But peace built on falsehood has cracks you can't hide. There's a difference between performance and purpose. You weren't built to perform. You were built for purpose. And purpose doesn't scream for attention. It moves in alignment. It walks in light. It stands firm in truth. So while he's preparing to sing his happiness forever, let him. Because that song will become a cage. A melody he'll have to replay over and over, just to drown out the sound of what he truly lost. You. Not just a partner. Not just a friend. But a once-in-a-lifetime kind of soul who would have carried his name in prayer and his burdens in love. You were never replaceable. And the emptiness he tries to fill with applause, validation, or new faces, will never match the purity you carried in silence. But your silence isn't empty anymore. It's sacred. Because while he rehearses his next act, you're stepping into your next assignment. God is trusting you with more. More favor. More clarity. More anointing. Heaven is preparing a stage for you, too. But not one where you have to pretend. A stage where your scars shine as proof that mercy is real. That healing is holy. That walking away from what broke you was actually walking toward your calling. So don't rush to respond. Don't try to expose the truth. Let your healing be louder than your hurt. Let your fruit speak when words fail. Because the God who vindicates in silence is also the God who rewards in full view. And that moment is closer than you think. If you've ever felt like your silence was wasted, or that your pain went unnoticed, this is your reminder: heaven saw everything. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, because someone else is suffering in silence, and your breakthrough might just be their lifeline. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can hurt you, and still walk around like they're the one who was broken. How they can carry smiles on lips that once spoke love to you, now speaking your name like a faded chapter, as if they weren't part of your story at all. But you remember. Not to hold on to pain, but because pain taught you something precious: how to let go without losing yourself. There was a version of you that would have chased closure. That would have fought to be understood. That would have bled just to keep the bond from dying. But that version has ascended. You've become something more, not because you forgot the betrayal, but because you forgave it without needing an apology. And that kind of forgiveness? It's divine. It means you no longer carry the man who broke you as a weight on your back, but as a wisdom in your spirit. You know now, just because someone smiles in public, just because they sing happiness like a song on loop, doesn't mean they're whole. Sometimes, performance is a prison. And the man you trusted is trapped in one of his own making, a life he convinced himself to celebrate, even as truth knocks at the walls of his peace. But you? You are free. Free from needing revenge. Free from waiting on karma. Free from defining your worth based on who left and why. Because what left was never meant to last. And what remains? God. God remains faithful. God remains near. God remains your vindicator, your healer, your defender. The battle wasn't to destroy you. It was to prove something, that your spirit could be crushed and still call on heaven. That your love could be abused and still stay pure. That your soul could be dragged through storms, and still rise like sunlight breaking through clouds. And now you carry something the world cannot replicate, a testimony forged in fire. You know what real joy feels like. Not the kind that needs an audience, but the kind that shows up at midnight when the world is quiet and heaven is near. You've been through betrayal, but you were never abandoned. You've cried yourself to sleep, but woke up with grace anyway. You've heard the silence of people you once prayed for, and still chose to keep your heart soft. That is growth. That is victory. And that's why you don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to the one who left. Not to the ones who watched you suffer in silence. Not even to yourself. Because the God who watched it all, He is the one who's lifting you now. He is setting a table before you in the presence of your enemies, not to shame them, but to show you that He never forgot. He never ignored your prayers. Never wasted your tears. Never let your cries fall into empty space. You trusted a man once. And he may be singing a happiness forever, but heaven is writing a joy in you that has no end. You were never forgotten. You were being fortified. You were never discarded. You were being divinely positioned. You were never foolish for loving. You were faithful, and that has eternal rewards. So let this be your closure. Let this be your peace. Not in what he says now. Not in what he posts or pretends to be. But in what God declares over you. You are mine. You are whole. You are rising. If this final message brought something sacred to life in you, take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe, because your voice might be the very hope someone else is praying for right now.